Hi, welcome to YTV and this week's segment of Everybody Has a Story. We're here in Mason Laboratory in the garage of the Yale Bulldogs Racing team. And we're very excited to be joined this week by Yale junior Chinmay Jaju. Chinmay is the chief engineer for the Bulldogs Racing team and oversaw the design and construction of the Bulldogs Racing car, which won numerous awards at this year's Formula Hybrid Collegiate competition in New Hampshire. Chinmay, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
So tell me about this car. How did you get involved with this first off? And when did you guys start working on the car?
So when I was a freshman, the Bulldogs Racing team actually existed. But during that whole year, not that much work was done on the car because the club was sort of not meeting regularly. And at the start of my sophomore year, I began talking with the advisor of the club, a senior who graduated, Yusuf Chohan, who now works in the CEID, and also some other students who were on the team the year before. And we decided it'd be really cool if we could kickstart the organization and make it actually happen. So we got a new faculty advisor, Joe Zinter, who's been great in helping us get everything we needed. And we just sort of went from there. None of us had experience building a car before, but we decided that if we worked hard, we could get something together for the competition.
And you did, and this is the most successful year the team has ever had, is that right?
Yep. The team actually started a long time ago as a class on campus, and this was sort of a senior design course. They took and modified a dune buggy. And throughout its history, the team had various types of leaderships and different styles of student involvement, either through classes or extracurricular. And this year it worked out really well, where we just had a group of about 10 dedicated students and some graduate students who were helping us out with the project.
Well, you're a long way from a dune buggy. Let's look at the car. So take me inside the process of building this car. Where do you start? You know, do you go into a boardroom and draw blueprints? Is that where this begins?
So we basically start with the ideas behind the car. We have to decide, first of all, what we want our car to be able to do. And so based on that, we can create a set of requirements and then design around something that will meet those requirements. Last year was a little bit special because we actually had this frame designed for us and some of the suspension parts also designed for us. And that's sort of what was left over from previous years of Bulldogs Racing. And we decided that in order to complete the car in 1 year, we just sort of pick up where they left off and just run with it. So based on where they were, we started putting in all the other components of the car. And there's some really cool 3D programs that will allow you to design this stuff on a computer and sort of visualize everything and where it fits in before you even cut any metal. And from there, we go down to the basements, machine all the parts using some pretty sophisticated machines that can cut metal to 1/1000th of an inch, and we assemble.
Now, once you get past the blueprint stage, when you get to actually building the car, where do you start?
Well, we actually learned the hard way that you should start with sort of prototyping some of this stuff. Recently, we've had access to 3D printers, laser cutters, and these tools give us the ability to quickly make a part out of a different material to see if it'll fit and to see if it's the right shape, it has the right geometry, and then we can actually cut it out of metal. Unfortunately, earlier in the year, we actually cut some of these parts out of metal, probably $1,000 part. In terms of the cost of the metal and the machining, and we realized after the fact that they weren't the right size. So since then we've been more diligent about verifying that our computer models are correct by actually making something fitting into the car and then coming back with the final product.
Now, this is a hybrid car, right?
Yes.
So what's the expense of a car like this? How much funding does it take to go into this type of car?
I'd say all in all, this car is probably about $40,000 worth of parts. And if you were to try and put money on the amount of time that we spent designing it, this would be a very expensive car very quickly. But yeah, like you mentioned, it's a hybrid car, which is sort of cool because race cars aren't usually thought of as at all sustainable. And we're sort of trying to change that a little bit by competing in the hybrid competition. There's also an all-electric competition, which is sort of where this stuff is moving, and why it's sort of a cool design challenge for college students, because it really forces you to think about some green engineering.
So when you get to the competition and you're ready to race this car, how much of your success depends on the driver versus the design of the car?
So that's actually one of the really nice things about this competition. We have a combination of the driver skill and the car's design that really contributes to winning the competition. And the nice thing is they let students drive, so we don't have a professional driver, and sort of an equalizer for everybody is that students are driving. However, the fastest car usually does win the race in terms of being the most drivable by the students.
Well, when you were saying earlier that this was driven by students at the competition, so I gotta ask, safety, what kind of precautions go into this? Does the university oversee any safety precautions, or is it at the competition solely?
So yeah, these cars are driven by students, so the safety standards we hold are quite rigorous, and fortunately the competition has about 200 pages worth of rules.
Wow.
And meeting those rules almost guarantees that you have a pretty safe car. At the competition, one of the days is purely dedicated to just scrutineering the car and making sure that it's mechanically and electrically very safe to drive. So I feel no qualms about putting a student in the car.
Have you driven it?
I actually haven't driven it. I don't have a driver's license, which is surprising for some people, but I like building the cars, not driving the cars.
And how fast does this thing go?
Tops at about 60 miles per hour, but it'll get there very quickly. The setup is a very tight, windy course, so we have to do a lot of turns and acceleration.
Well, it's an impressive engineering feat, but I gotta ask you, you're a mechanical engineer, and you know just as well as anyone that Yale isn't well known or as well respected as some other schools for its engineering. Why'd you come to Yale, knowing that in advance, and what do you think Yale can do to change that culture here?
Well, sort of the really nice thing for students like me in mechanical engineering is, one, the student-faculty ratio. It's better than 1-to-1 in favor of the students. And to be totally honest, Yale has so many resources that they just pour into the engineering school here. And each student, myself included, really gets a lot of attention. And we get to do cool things like this without sort of having to fight for funding and resources.
Now, you worked in Belgium over the summer for a formula racing company, and you're a chief engineer here, you're a mechanical engineer at Yale. I gotta ask, are you gonna be going into racing for a career, or is this just a hobby?
No, I'm not sure about the career. Racing is a great challenge for me because it's a perfect way to design components that have such a good metric for judging how well you did the race. And so I really enjoy the challenge. I'm just not sure if racing necessarily is in the future, but we'll see.
Well, you've won enough awards to already make Yale proud. Chinmay Jaju, thank you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for joining us for yet another segment of Everybody Has a Story on YTV. Back to you in the studio.